I've never had so many thank yous before. I mean, whoever was trying to come down here and keep the fires going or whatever, who knows what, but we served a purpose.
I'm talking to a gentleman I'm calling Palmer Road Defender. During the Clackamas County, Oregon conflagration this month, he defended his community while motorists were streaking through Willamette Valley's back roads, throwing out incendiaries to start fires and cause general mayhem. My name is Timothy Virkola, and this is the Locofoco Netcast. That sound of a match may seem ominous, but it's the Locofoco logo, and here's where we try to light what Samuel Adams called brush fires of the mind, not burn down civilization. A number of weeks ago, you had to move out of your house.
Oh, yeah, we were evacuated on, I believe it was the 8th of September. Because of a fire that is actually the Dowdy fire, which burned almost 1,500 acres and destroyed 3 houses.
And this was across the river from you, is that correct?
Yeah, it started on the north side of the Clackamas River. They haven't quite determined the cause yet. They, believe it was power lines, but, either way, it moved down because of the winds. It moved down and blew across the river and started burning actually west, and then the winds shifted and blew it back to the south. I guess it would be southwest. And unfortunately, some people lost their homes and the fire grew up the hill over there. And they called an evacuation on Tuesday. And so we were gone a couple of days and came home on Thursday because we heard that the power was back on. And when we came home Thursday, it was pretty ominous. You could feel the smoke and you could see how the fire actually came a half mile from our house. So it was burning this direction, and fortunately the wind carried it off in the other direction. But Thursday, so we were home, and somebody had called us and said that they had received a call from another neighbor that a black Subaru with Texas plates was throwing Molotov cocktails out on Palmer Road. So I went out to investigate, and there was a bunch of neighbors also. Evidently the social media communication, whatever, everybody has all tied in. There's a bunch of people out looking for the same vehicle. And within all the, I won't call it confusion, or hysteria, I'd call it more of a organized coalition of neighbors looking for people that were out starting fires. And that is where it started. And I decided to post up on the top of the road, which is Palmer and Eden. And of course, where I live is like 40 yards from that intersection of Eden and Palmer Road. And our road's a private road. So I posted, and I was watching.
So when you say posted, do you mean you were sitting in a car?
Actually, I was outside of the car, leaning on it. And, of course, I was armed because I didn't actually have my gun in my hand. I wasn't, showing everybody that I was armed. But I had it in case I needed it.
Was it a hunting rifle you had?
No, it was a Smith & Wesson 9mm handgun. Very kind of a basic, most people use it for their home or whatever. Of course, it wasn't like on me because, I'm like not out to shoot anybody, or, I didn't think the threat was somebody was going to kill me. But I was just looking for this Subaru with Texas plates, a black Subaru. I'm hanging out, and people were like driving by, and as they saw me out there, they're like, "Are you on road watch?" And I said, "Yeah, actually, I'm hanging out up here watching the road, making sure our neighbors are coming in and we don't have anybody starting fires or looting, because it was an evacuation 3 and there was a good 100 people gone from their homes, and so we were quite vulnerable. So I just took it upon myself to sit up there, and before I know it, a couple hours goes by and people are joining me. And there was people that wanted to sit on chairs and hold their AK-47s, and people that wanted to sit on chairs and hold their shotguns. And I'm like, okay. We actually felt really threatened. From what I was talking to people, they actually felt really threatened. They heard a whole bunch of stuff, and there were cars that were racing down Eden Road that would stop and look, and they wouldn't come down Palmer Road, and they would just keep racing by. And then there were trucks that would be coming by chasing these cars that would pull in and talk to us, and they were like from Estacada or from Eagle Creek, and they're like people that are out just chasing around these cars that they were saying were trying to start fires. And I was like, okay, well, if you chase them in here, we get them, we'll make citizens arrest, whatever we got to do. And it was quite active for a couple nights. Actually, this went on. I was out there from 7 p.m. till 7 a.m. And it was like going all night the first couple nights, and then it like stopped. Then all of a sudden there was nobody coming out here, and it was about, I'd have to say, Saturday evening.
This last Saturday.
I noticed.
This last Saturday, you mean, right?
Yeah. It would have been, 10th, 11th. It was the week of Labor Day, that week afterwards. So, and it was amazing because so many people were joining together, and the community, and I met more neighbors and more really good people I never knew I lived with. It was like, wow. So all these people are in my neighborhood, and we're all on the same page. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Well, it's kind of nice then that you actually meet some of your neighbors and that you guys are simpatico.
Yeah.
My memory is that it was on the 8th that the smoke, I could smell the smoke here. Maybe it was actually on the 6th that I could smell the smoke here, which is like 100 and some miles away in Washington State.
Yeah, actually, that would have been, hold on a second. I'm going to pick this up and go look here, because it was quite amazing when the winds came through. And the winds actually, so Tuesday the 8th is when we were evacuated. We didn't come back till the 10th, and that's when I went up on the road. So the 11th was Friday, and yeah, it was really smoky. It was really, really smoky. I mean, we saw more firefighters and more fire trucks. I counted probably 16 fire trucks in groups of 5 go down and come out, and then another one would go down and come out. So it went on for a good till the 11th. And then on Saturday the 12th, everything kind of calmed down, and all the riffraff quit coming out here. And a lot of people were really thankful that we were up there posting guard. And what it inspired was, by Monday, the residents of Palmer Road, which Trillium Hollow comes off Palmer Road about 40 yards from Eden. So, it's a pretty secure little neighborhood, road. they decided to have a meeting, and we called a coalition of road watch, which started on Monday after the Clackamas County sheriffs came out on Sunday and told us that we had to like calm it down, get off the road, we get citations. So basically they told us that our whole thing that we were doing for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday was, above and beyond, I guess. So they thought we were like pushing it with armed citizens checking vehicles that people that didn't live here.
Well, did you stop people on the road or what?
Not with arms.
You sort of flagged them?
Yeah, I flagged them with a flashlight, and I would check with them and see who they were and make sure that they lived here, they knew somebody here. And that went on. And, people weren't banishing, showing arms and stuff. Maybe the first night because of the Molotov cocktail people and the threat that everybody felt. It was a certain urgency on the first night. And it was different.
Are you saying that was the 10th, the Thursday the 10th?
Yeah.
Okay, now when you say Molotov cocktail people, what are you saying? What did you hear, and why did you think there were Molotov cocktail people around?
Well, people just say that it's a term for a firebomb.
Right, but did you see anything?
It could be any kind of an incendiary device, really. Right. Would be called a Molotov cocktail.
Did you see anything?
I did not. However, when you are involved with all these people racing around, chasing these people around in their cars, and they're like fighting them. I mean, I heard several stories. Okay, a couple were shot. Somebody was arrested on Judd Road. They were caught throwing a Molotov cocktail. Another guy was caught on the side of the road trying to start a fire with gas. People being caught trying to burn houses down and confessing to being paid to do it. So, I mean, I've heard all kinds of that, but I didn't, it was all secondhand information. But, there was definitely something going on. I mean, I know it. I saw it with the cars racing by.
Right, and we heard things from the police too. I mean, I understand that the police fairly early on were advising was it the Clackamas City Council or was it Clackamas County Council? I forget which, to have a curfew. What night did they talk about curfew?
They started the curfew on, I believe, Saturday.
So that would be Saturday the 12th.
Maybe Friday, but I know it was definitely in place on Saturday. Saturday,
okay,
when I was up there from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. was, the first half of the afternoon, the evening, people want to come up and hang out, till about 2 a.m, and everybody wants to go home. And, the guys like me and a couple of other people we kept watch, and it was dead. I mean, there was nothing. So my overview of it is that Thursday and Friday, when they were out here, they encountered resistance, and they were like, okay, this isn't worth it. These guys are, we can't terrorize them like we can the people in Portland. So they went back to the city.
That was your interpretation of the turn of events on that weekend. Is that correct?
Yeah, because they were out here, and it only lasted 2 days, and they were gone.
Okay. Yeah, I heard a lot of stories, and I understand that there have been arrests, but I also understand that the local TV stations said that the prosecutor was not prosecuting anyone.
Yeah, I only hope that these people get held accountable and get prosecuted, because it's their job to keep people safe, and if they're not doing that, then they need to have some sort of repercussions for that. Because seriously, there are laws, and if they're not going to enforce the laws, then why do they have a job? I mean, that's their job.
Good point. It will be interesting to see how this all falls out, because so far we've been getting kind of runaround official statements.
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, I can say that there were three or four, three Clackamas County sheriffs that came out Thursday and Friday, and one Multnomah County sheriff came out on Friday, and his words were, "We are helping out our Clackamas County because we can't enforce." I don't want to put words into his mouth because he didn't say this, but I think because they can't enforce the laws in Multnomah County. So they came out to help Clackamas because Clackamas is a little bit different. It's not under the same jurisdiction. But come to find out that they would come out and they would get out and tell us, "Excellent, we're glad you guys are here, and we're glad you guys are there." And it's kind of like a mutual thing where they were happy we were there and we were happy that they were here. And it was like, we love our law officers and they're happy that we are able to protect our community. And then over the course of 72 hours, that changed.
Yeah, over that weekend, there was an official discouragement to your activities. Is that correct?
Yeah, but we were getting praise for the first 72 hours, from sheriffs and other law enforcement. One guy came out on, it was Saturday, and he pulled down the road, and he saw my signs, and he saw us there, and he says, "Well, I don't need to come back here tonight." His words exactly. He's like, "I don't need to come back here tonight. Thank you." And we're like, "No problem, officer."
He saw your signs, you said. What do you mean by that? Did you have signs that you had up?
Oh, yeah. It was a couple of plyboard signs, 4x8 sheet plyboard. And the first one said checkpoint, and that was mine for, a good couple of days. And then somebody decided to put up one that said, "You loot, we shoot, and we don't dial 911. Okay, and that sign went up Saturday. That was the last night, and I think that's what did it. I think that whoever put the sign up and covered my checkpoint up with that sign probably sealed the deal with, okay, so that's threatening. The language is actually enticing violence. And that night when I was up there, when that sign was up there, honestly, I felt threatened for the first time because I was basically telling them that I'm going to shoot them and I don't dial 911. And I didn't like the message. And I actually told Jim that if that sign's going to be up here, I'm not doing this anymore because I don't want to antagonize people to shoot at me, and I don't want to shoot anybody,
Right.
So the checkpoint sign is how it started. And then a third party came in and put another sign up over mine. They thought it was funny. And it made
Well, it is funny.
Undoubtedly,
it's funny, but it's more funny at a distance than right there in the middle of a smoky, violent atmosphere.
Yeah, and try sitting up on the side of the road all night with that sign and the fog rolling in, and I couldn't see 2 feet in front of my face. I felt like a sitting duck. I could send you pictures. I mean, I got pictures of the sign and I got pictures of the fog, and
Well, please do. I would like to have those pictures.
Yeah, I'll send it. It's actually
Thanks.
It's gotten what some lady says. "Oh, this sign, you guys put this sign up. It's got 70,000 hits," and people are like spitting on it and stuff. I'm like, what? So, yeah, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I probably
Now,
should I send it to this number, or do I need to send it to a different number?
send it to my email address. We'll talk about it later. The nights you were evacuated, it was, of course, horribly smoky there, right? It wasn't even fit to live, right?
Right.
And it was still very smoky for quite some time afterwards.
Oh, the same. Yeah, after a whole week.
The whole week.
Oh, yeah. I basically, I wasn't wearing a face mask, and by the end of the week, I had such a horrible headache. I couldn't believe it. So it was definitely rough.
Yeah. because it was smoky even here. And that, once again, I'm 100 miles away, different valley. I mean, it's just it was actually smoky at the beach the next week. I went to Long Beach, Washington, and it was smoky there.
The Riverside fire, which burned 1,040 acres right up the Clackamas River, was where all the smoke was coming from. That one in the Malala fire. Ours only had 1,500 acres, so I'm sure ours didn't help it, but the majority of the smoke was coming from that 140,000 acre fire.
Yeah, yeah.
It was huge. It started, it was small and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. They finally have it contained, but the fears were that fire was going to come together with the one in Malala, and it was going to, if they came together, it would have shot a fireball down the Clackamas River like nobody had ever seen, because how the channel and the canyon and all that goes. If those two fires would have came together, it would have been just, I don't know. I don't want to speculate it, but it would have been horrible. It would have been something that we have never seen. And they had the maps, and it was like, it would have been the ultimate firestorm that would have just devastated the whole area for freaking decades. And they kept those two fires.
There were a lot of firefighters out, right?
Yeah, they kept those two fires from coming together. It was unbelievable what they did. It would have just sparked the whole canyon and just gone down, and there would have been no way with the smoke that they could have fought it with overhead, aerial water. It would have just been horrible. So that was and the fact that the wind stopped, and the wind stopping was probably the most crucial part to keeping those two fires from coming together. We were up here talking about it, on Thursday and Friday, up on the road, in the smoke. We're sitting out there with our guns and flashlights and watching for Antifa coming out here. And, there were rumors that they tried to burn the Barton Bridge, start a fire on the Barton Bridge. And there was a rumor that they wanted to start a fire at the Carver Bridge. And, they were trying to do a whole bunch of stuff. But as I see it, when I drove around,
yeah,
the community and the people that came together, actually, up in Damascus, there was a guy with a blowtorch trying to start a fire on the side of the road, and people did a citizen's arrest, and he took off. And so there has been some activity out here, which I would label as, Antifa or BLM. I mean, whatever, you want to call it, because, the BLM movement has already said they're going to burn down the country, and they're the ones that said it. So, I don't need to say it for them.
Right. But the Washington Post and other outlets have been saying that there has been no evidence or testimony direct of concerted terrorist activity. They're saying it's all individual activity.
Yeah.
Which, well, of course, these groups are not necessarily, command groups. These are like-minded people who take cue from each other. So I'm not really sure what they mean, actually, even when they say that. They just seem to be deprecating the possibility that people on the left would be wanting to destroy vast tracts of land and people's lives.
Well, Tim, I have to tell you, the majority of people out here all have Trump signs and Trump flags and stuff in their yards. So, it is possible that there are some rogue haters that strayed away to come out here and just, whatever. But it's just amazing that how politicized everything really is. Seriously. It's like, so the conservatives live out in the woods and the liberals all live in the city? I mean, is that for real?
Well, that's not quite true, but there is a tendency to fall out that direction. But also, it does help that people who own their own property desire to keep it, whereas people who are renters don't really think that property means the same thing. You know, there is that mindset in the world.
Yeah.
That if you don't own any property, then you don't care about property. You don't care about a person's. It's very odd because I think property rights are absolutely central to civilization. But
Yeah.
that's not how people on the left think of it.
Yeah, it's just really, I would call it contorted. It's amazing. It's so like twisted. Seriously.
Yeah.
You know, burning somebody's house down is somehow, what do they call that? Where retribution, not retribution, but restitution. You know, where they think the BLM thinks that they need to get a whole bunch of money for anybody that's skin color is black. What do they call that? They want restitution. No, they want money.
Well, yeah, that is what they want. Reparations is the word we're looking for.
Yeah.
It's reparations that Black Lives Matter wants, but we don't really know that. There's not a lot of black people in Oregon, and we have no evidence that it's blacks doing this.
No, it's
right.
It's not. It's the rich, overeducated college kids that want Marxism. They want they want to basically. They're anarchists, I guess. That's all I can say.
Well, on the 10th, I guess that was the day you got back into your house. Is that correct? Again?
Yeah.
That was the date that I figured that this was terroristic activity.
Yep.
Now, it's not been proven to me, but it certainly indicates that. And we saw fires all over Portland, and then we have them spread all throughout the Pacific Northwest when it got really, really dry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just a conjecture that sort of conjectures itself. You know, I mean, it's just right there.
Well,
so
you know, my dad, who lives in Florence, Oregon, says that there was a gal dumping gas out of a gas can on the side of the road, and somebody pulled over her and she freaking jumped in her car and took off real quick. So, and that was just one, one incident, and there's like all kinds of them. You know, I told you about the guy who caught somebody trying to burn his house down and held him at gunpoint, and he said, "Oh, I get $500 if I document it that I burnt," blah blah blah.
That's hard to believe, though. Even I, who am,
I don't think Soros could pull that off. I don't think any terrorist organization could pull that off.
Yeah, that seems
How
unlikely.
can you pay somebody for starting fires? You know, what are they going to like take their picture? It's like, I started this fire. I don't know.
It seems unlikely. It seems like that seems like a folk story.
Yeah. Yeah. Paranoia. I think people are getting over paranoid, but if you wanted to, and probably any person that lives in the country knows that you could drive down the road and throw freaking flares out into the woods and cause fires. The ones that came out here on that night, I mean, that was for real. They were coming out. It might have been looters. It might have been arsonists, but they caught a couple of them. They actually caught a couple of the arsonists out here.
They caught two.
Yeah, they've got arsonists in Washington State, way up in Puyallup and places like that.
Yeah.
So this is not a a very narrow community event. It's not just Oregon. Well, let me interrupt here. We're halfway through, or thereabouts, this conversation with Embedded Palmer Road Defender. An Embedded Palmer Road Defender brought up some interesting stuff that I wanted to cut out because we got a little far afield. But we were talking about conspiracy and how we interpret rumors in a time of conflict and danger. And also the people who want to deny that there's any potentiality for conspiracy in a time of danger. This happens a lot nowadays, we get a lot of denials of conspiracy, a lot of denials that there's any bad evildoers out there wanting to do evil. And we talked about why that would be the case. And I came up with the theory about why some people deny. This is not about Popper. This is not about Michael Huemer and his anti-conspiracy theories. This is simply about ideology and ideologues. The deal with people who are on the left is that they want to excuse people further on the left from crimes or even the suspicion of crimes, because if they don't, then they have to confess that their ideas might be violent by nature.
That's absolutely true.
And people don't want to do that. People on the left want to pretend they're pacifists.
Yeah.
But I know of no people on the left personally who are pacifists. And most want a very large state, and large states run on violence, just as your local watch does. This is everybody who protects their own property runs on violence. But it's the question of on what grounds is violence committed, and do you initiate it or are you defensive? And I prefer defensive to initiated violence.
Yeah, and you know what? That first, the 10th, 11th, and 12th, I actually felt more safe with my neighbors and everybody being armed, and we're all watching for these guys trying to come in and restart the fires, because ours was a 1,500-acre fire. 3 houses were lost. And we know they were trying to restart the fire, because the first one was legitimate, and the dude took off, and I believe he was arrested over on 205. And they actually somewhere on the internet, there's a picture of the black Subaru with the Molotov cocktails, but it didn't have Texas plates. But they got a black Subaru with Molotov cocktails in it over off of I-205. Yeah, they were like jars with rags hanging out of them. So the police came up Sunday. The head sheriff, he was somebody in charge, and spoke to the people up there. I wasn't up there yet. I was coming up right when he left, and there was 3 cars. And he was telling us that, we were blocking the road and we didn't have the right to stop anybody, and, telling us what we could do and what we couldn't do, and that, basically putting a kibosh on it. But it was kind of interesting in my mind that the timing was they did that after all the riffraff decided to give up.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, and then they decided to increase their presence by doing roadblocks on Highway 211 and 212. So after they did that, they decided to do roadblocks on certain areas afterwards and increase their presence. So you kind of wonder if, I know that the media and for some reason people are covering for Antifa, but we can, if you can count to 10, you can figure it out what's going on. Personally, I think that they're just, come on back to town, just rest up for after the election, and then you guys can burn the city down. That's what I think. But
we'll see what they do. I mean, they were burning quite a bit of stuff already, so we'll see what they, before they move down into the hinterlands. It is interesting that the police told you to stand down,
mm-hmm.
and they started doing what you were doing, basically, putting up roadblocks,
yep.
so to speak,
yep.
After the worst was over. So that's an element of police behavior, security theater.
Right.
But they were doing important work during the crisis.
Yes.
But they weren't doing what you were doing. They were doing something else.
Yeah.
But the fire department did so much nice stuff for these guys.
I told him I can't count the engines that came up and down out of Palmer Road. It was unbelievable. And they were actually thankful. They were thanking us for basically keeping people out as well.
They brought you pizza. and sandwiches.
Oh yeah, they
and
brought
fruit.
us all. They brought us firemen's food. I mean, these awesome sandwiches. They were feeding us. They're like, thank you guys, thank you guys. Here's some food.
So the fire trucks were actually going down the Palmer Road off of Eden. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Which is down your neck of the woods, and you were letting them through and so forth.
Yeah.
That's how you.
Yeah. They were
good.
working on the Doughty fire. It was Doughty, D-A-W-T-Y, Doughty Road is where it started, and they call it the Doughty fire. These guys were unbelievable, you know, and I gotta tell you, Tim, I've never had so many thank yous before. I mean, whoever was trying to come down here and keep the fires going or whatever, who knows what, but we served a purpose.
Well, very good. And maybe Oregonians will someday thank you. My guess is they'll thank you by voting for Trump. Yeah. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to be thanking you by voting for Biden.
No.
So good. I'm going to throw up. Excuse me for a moment.
Oh, man. There was about 6 to 8 19-year-old young males that were all came out, and they all wanted to join, and that was probably a huge part of it. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe all these young people that came out. It's like, wow. I mean, just out of the woods, they're calling their friends and their cars, and they're all coming out, and they're wanting to be part of this mini militia, I call it. So I thought that was really encouraging. How many young conservatives they were all like Trumpers. I'm like, really? Are you guys just like what you want to like kill these guys? They're like, we want to get them. If Antifa's coming out here, we want to get them. You know, they're all like, you know, all wanting to get Antifa.
Yeah, well, I think you probably kept Antifa away rather than getting anybody. So that's good.
I know.
To discourage the enemy is sometimes maybe even better than getting them.
It was incredible. All these young kids showed up. I was like, seriously? And I'm like their leader. And I actually had to tell them, okay, put your guns down. You don't need to walk around with your guns out. You know, you don't see anybody coming down here. We don't need to shoot anybody. We just want to make sure they don't come down here. It was a part of a really heated moment that I had to like talk to these kids and tell them that, you know, we're not killing people. Okay. Not now. But it's amazing how many of them came out all ready to go to war with Antifa. I couldn't believe it.
Very good.
My dad said that's why the media doesn't report it, because they don't want a whole bunch of people going down and beating up their little secret Democratic Antifa army. That's what my dad said.
Well, that's a reasonable theory. We don't really know exactly what's going on. I mean, the media and the Democratic Party and leftists in general and anyone leaning left generally want to deny that these terrorists exist within their midst and that they're encouraging them. And I think this is very dangerous, because that's exactly what happened after the downfall of the Tsar in Russia, when there was a republic for a short time, is that the leftist organizations encouraged terrorism, and then they got communism.
Wow.
It's very similar. It's very similar with what was happening. Now, we're not going to get communism, because America is not a right place for communism. It's a right place for a huge shooting war, but it's not a right place for communism.
Right, which is what we're probably experiencing now. So, and you know what? I'm glad that you see that, because I honestly thought my dad could have been right, that if they said that yes, Antifa was out there starting fires and Antifa was this, people would come down from the hills and they would raid Portland, and Antifa would, I mean, they'll actually probably start some kind of a big old thing, which they don't want. So,
yeah, well, we don't want a shooting war. That is something we don't want. So if we can have just enough force to demoralize the enemy, that's what we want. We want them demoralized. We don't want them fighting.
That's why they left out here with their tails between their legs. I honestly think they came out here and they're like, oh my, oh no, they're going to get us. Let's go away. That's what I think.
Well, that is my interview with Palmer Road Defender, as I call him, and his wife, who chirped in a few times. Now, this has been the Local Foco Netcast. This was recorded in mid-September 2020. It's being launched onto the world a few days later. And you can find this podcast, of course, at localfoco.net and via a number of podcatchers. It will be up on YouTube, BitChute, and Brighteon very soon. But mainly, this is an audio podcast, and it was recorded only by phone. So, you know how to get us? You can find us at localfoco.us and at localfoco.locals.com. Yeah, why don't you go to localfoco.locals.com and join up. Follow me. Like this audio, like this video. Do all the things you're supposed to do to help me out. That's supposed to be what I'm supposed to be asking at this point. I hate asking people for anything, but, you have to ask people before they do something, generally. So take that brush fire of the mind and spread the word, and maybe we can have a free civilization again someday, and we won't have people who want to destroy it by lighting fires to fields, forests, houses, streets, dumpsters. Yeah, this is dumpster fire territory we're in right now, but maybe we can survive it.